Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, whatever time of day you are joining us. This is the Victory Roll Wrestling Podcast. I am one of your hosts, the storyteller, Alex Braddock.
And I am your other host. You know what? I don't have a gimmick. I'm a fan, and fans should not have gimmicks, folks.
He's got a point. He's
I'm
got
Dylan
a point.
Gilbert, the other half of the Victory Roll podcast. And, I might be a mark, but at least I'm not a freaking mark. You know what I mean?
He's got a point. He's got a point. But if you're new here, this is the Victory Roll Wrestling Podcast, where we take the week in review and we sit there and we go through Monday Night Raw all the way to Saturday Night Collision. We recap what is going on. And before we do that, Dylan, what has the week been like for you, man?
Man, I've been watching, doing some prep for later in the show. I've watched a fair amount of the G1, and as we're recording this, I fell asleep this morning at 3:15 trying to catch the finish to the main event that I didn't even catch. I woke up to like the G1 logo on my screen. So sometimes you roll the dice and you don't win.
Awesome. Sounds awesome. Yeah, G1. Whew. It has been a month for sure, and to have the finish come upon us is for me a little strange, because I'm to the point that like I've spent the past month watching wrestling, and now we're towards the end of it. But that'll be later in the episode. Should we just kick off the recap?
Let's kick this recap off.
All right, Monday Night Raw. I'll speed through the bullet points because I know what you want to talk about. Let's speed through the bullet points. We have Gunther versus Randy Orton in a promo battle, which ends in an RKO. But during that promo battle, Drew McIntyre comes out to come say some stuff. CM Punk's still pissy with Drew, so CM Punk hops the barricade, beats the tar out of Drew. We have the Wyatt Six. Freaking Bo Dallas working magic. Just keeping that tension alive, even though they are not on TV every week. He keeps in with the promos. But let's get into what you want to talk about, bro. That's got to be this Judgment Day storyline.
Dude, I did not. I guess that's a lie. I did see this kind of coming, but I didn't see it happening so quickly. Of like Rhea and Damian Priest being two of the biggest faces in the company, coming off of this just like dominant monster heel faction. But when Rhea hit that line on Dominic of "you did stick a knife in my back," but I'm sure you've heard this before, it wasn't deep enough, and the entire arena just ooh.
Yeah, nah, that one hurts.
She's killing it, and I love the fact that Rhea had to at one point when Dom's trying to talk, every time the mic would come up, the boos would get deafening, and she literally has to do the like, guys, let him talk, but instead of it just being like, please stop booing him so we can continue the promo, she says like, look, I love this hatred, but I kind of want to hear him out. And the crowd still keeps booing over it. Like,
oh, absolutely, as they should have.
Like, again, leave it to Dominic Mysterio to turn heel as a heel and just get nuclear hatred.
Nuclear heat, brother. Yeah, man, I love what they're doing with the whole cowardly heels, because when they stop being cowardly heels, I know it's going to hit hard.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about how big of a match Balor versus Priest is going to be, so I'm ready for it. But speaking of former tag teams and factions, they're doing a little something special with the New Day on Raw.
Yeah.
Good old Odyssey Jones.
Odyssey
right?
Jones, who really impressed me in the like, I guess, Raw debut that he had. Yeah. Really solid match, like a mobile big guy. My knee-jerk reaction immediately is like, please don't put somebody in to replace E. But I kind of like where they're going with this because, you've had Karrion Kross. I went to call him Killer Kross. Again, Mark. But, Karrion Kross has been kind of having this feud with Xavier Woods, trying to get him to turn on Kofi Kingston and really laying in the, like, he doesn't respect you, you should be your own man. And as they're having the back and forth about Odyssey just being there to replace E, Kofi pulls the mic out of Xavier's hands and starts speaking for him. And for the first time in my life, I really thought this could be the moment the New Day breaks up.
And that's rough to think about.
They've said from day one that they never wanted to be broken up, and when E got drafted to, I think E went to Raw, they went to SmackDown, or however, whichever way it went, that being the like we refuse to break up, but like we aren't on the same brand, but we are still the New Day. And so to see Woods' face in the background as this promo is happening, like he's just, there's a look in his eyes where you could tell it's like his wheels are turning.
Yeah.
And you could tell that that's a man that has got like 1,000 thoughts under the surface. And I think it's just like, you can't teach that level of just facial expression and saying so much without saying a word. But man, Xavier Woods is just way better than we give him credit for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Unreal.
I have always given those three guys credit.
One of my favorite tag teams ever.
Absolutely. And at this point, probably one of the longest reigning factions in WWE, if they are not already. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they are teasing potential breakup does break my heart, because there are so many fond memories of that. But I think it makes it worse that E is not back. Mm-hmm. I think it could seriously be a Shield situation between the three of them, and the fact that E isn't, from the looks of it, is not coming back could definitely ruin the potential story that is there. But I'm sure Woods and Kofi will take it and run with it whatever they're given, because the both of them have done that for 10 plus years now. So,
I mean, Kofi is the king of taking whatever crazy thing they give him and just knocking it out of the park every time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have anything else for Raw?
So let me look back to my notes. Yeah, main event of the night.
Oh, yeah.
Sami Zayn hits what I can only describe as a flying who knows into a spear to lose a 2 out of 3 falls match.
Yeah.
Watch it back if you haven't. Sami Zayn is, I think, one of the more gifted wrestlers on the planet, and somebody that I think understands on a different level. And even Sami Zayn, just like, okay, you have to spear me out of the air to get the point across, and it doesn't look like he's trying to hit an elbow. It doesn't look like he's trying to hit a crossbody. Sami Zayn just jumps forward, eats a spear. LOL, Braun wins.
And what sucks is he lands on his feet.
Yeah.
Like, his feet make contact with the mat before there's ever contact for the spear. So it's just like, come on, buddy. Like, I know
there's ways to get Braun over, and I think he's already over. I mean, like, I don't like him, but that doesn't mean he's not talented. It doesn't mean he's not over. But, man, watching Sami Zayn have to just have that uninspired finish to what I thought has actually been a pretty solid feud, and what was a really fun match, just for this uninspired LOL Braun wins. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. No, definitely so. I mean, like you said, just because you don't like a guy doesn't mean he's not over. We both understand Braun Breaker is talented. We just don't understand neither one of us necessarily get the big, strong guy that just comes in and tears people apart. We never have. It was Goldberg or Brock Lesnar, I
wasn't a Goldberg guy. I wasn't a Lesnar guy. Like, yeah. I appreciate what they can do, but it's just not. I'm not a big meaty men slapping meat guy.
I mean, I can be, but not in that sense. Not big, strong men. Like,
if it's going to be big, meaty men slapping meat, they have to at least be mobile. And Braun is mobile. Like, you can't take that away from him. Dude can move, but
very much so.
I'm more on the to keep quoting Big E. I'm more of the your 5-star masterpieces instead of big, meaty men slapping meat.
You can keep your 5-star classics. Your technical masterpieces.
Not me.
Oh, E, we miss you, buddy.
If he doesn't come back to wrestling, which with a neck injury like that, he may never wrestle again. But if they don't put him on commentary, Macho Man style, for like at least 6 months or so, you're missing out.
At least while Pat's at game day or something.
Yeah, exactly. When if Pat takes time off for game day, just put E in.
But
I'll watch every minute of every episode.
but that was Raw. Let's skip past NXT because, as most viewers know, sometimes we miss NXT, and quite honestly, if Joe Hendry is not the main stage, still not coming out of the closet. One of these days I'll say his name and he appears, but until then, yes, we skip NXT. Not because we don't like NXT, just because there's a lot of wrestling in the week.
There is.
But
a lot
moving
of
on to
wrestling.
Wednesday Night Dynamite, we have a triple threat: Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong.
I think that was a match that was really, really fun, and I think for what could have just been a spot fest, they really did a good job of the storytelling, because O'Reilly is currently aligned with Orange in the Conglomeration, my favorite slap together tag team in the world.
It's great.
But O'Reilly also has the history with Strong from Undisputed Era, and so there are the moments where, and I think this is one of those times where commentary can make or break a scenario. And I think commentary make that scenario even better with the O'Reilly's doing these moves almost out of muscle memory because he's so used to working with Strong. They've been together for so long that it's just second nature to him to hit these moves on Cassidy, who he has not worked with as much, but is currently aligned with.
The perfect example of that was Kyle and Orange setting up for the high-low on Roderick. Mm-hmm. Roderick pushing Cassidy through, and almost by muscle memory, Kyle sweeping the leg of Cassidy for the high-low with Roderick instead of Cassidy. And it was just, like, when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, they're setting up for the high-low, and oh no, like, muscle memory just took over. That's nuts. And then we had Orange Cassidy take it, which you got to push somebody in this match, and if you're going to do it, why not make it Cassidy?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think Cassidy's one of those guys that, for a gimmick that he just has his hands in his pockets and doesn't care, he is kind of, oddly enough, one of the bigger workhorses in that mid-card right now. Like, yeah. I mean, that whole run with the international title proved that he was ready to go week in, week out, and put on 20-minute matches that were solid.
Yeah, I honestly think we're to a point that you could slip Orange into any mid card title.
Right.
I do not think. I mean, I would not argue if he was slapped up against for the World Heavyweight Championship.
And I think it would be a match that would exceed expectation because he's damn good at that.
Absolutely. But I think at this point, story-wise, you could have him step up to any mid-card title picture and everyone go, I understand that. Okay, and that makes sense.
I think he gets a lot of flack. I think unnecessary flack for he does the hands in the pockets and this and that. Like, when you watch him click in, like when he has to try, that's the way they always put it. Oh, he has to try now. He is up there with any high flyer on that roster, but he is smart enough, has enough sense to be like, I don't need to do 15 suicide dives. I don't need to go through everything under the ring. I don't have to take 40 chair shots. Like, I can make any move mean the world because half the time he's trying to do as little as possible. So when he clicks in, everybody pops for it. It's smart, man.
Absolutely.
Everybody that steps in a ring, you've got a number of bumps that you can take before it's the last one, and you never know what that number is until you've hit it. And that's a man that's preserving his career with a gimmick that is getting reaction out of people.
It is.
That's a win-win.
It is. I have always admired Orange Cassidy. I have admired Orange Cassidy long before he was Orange Cassidy, and I didn't know that I was admiring Orange Cassidy. Thanks, Shikara. Next up, we have the Bucks via Acclaimed. Boy, oh boy, do not only the Bucks know how to put on a tag team match, but the Acclaimed are right there behind them.
One of the things I love is I think we've kind of been talking about this throughout this feud. The Acclaimed have been another one of those groups that people don't take very serious. as great as they are in the ring, they're the scissor guys. They're the Max is going to come out and rap, and like when they jumped the Bucks from behind in that entrance to kick the match off, and they just came flying in and started that fight immediately. I got so happy because I was like, oh man, the Acclaimed are serious and they want these titles, and this is not a game anymore.
It's not. And that's the great thing.
There's plenty of time for scissoring and rapping when you have the gold, but if you're on the chase, it's time to get real.
Absolutely. No, when they came in and jumped the Bucks, I mean, like the fact that they're not rapping, the fact that they did not do their little hand signal scissor thing to anyone. Of course, they still did their normal moves. For instance, the scissor me timbers. But that's any wrestling match ever. I will sit there and go into a street fight, beat the tar out of somebody, but I'm still going to yell my catchphrases because I want to get over. But besides the point,
that's pro wrestling, man. Like you're
right.
trying to get that reaction out of the crowd, and you're trying to win your match.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And then the finish was a little wonky.
Yeah.
And by wonky, I mean, why are FTR here? Oh wait, it's to cause a big fight and to have him ruin the Acclaimed. Oh, okay. So we're just setting up for Saturday night. Awesome.
Yeah, I think that you've got arguably like, but I mean, we'll put the Bucks in there too. But like, you've arguably between FTR and the Acclaimed, you've got two of the best, like probably the two best in the company that are not Matthew and Nicholas. And you can argue, whoever's number one, but I mean, like, you've got two teams that are absolute bangers, and I think the feud's been a little rushed. Like FTR, like Acclaimed was already on this run towards the Bucks. They were on that collision course, and they have been burning this thing, I think, just right for a long time. And then all of a sudden, FTR's back, and we want the Bucks. Well, hold on a second, we want the Bucks. And I think like there could have been a little more build. Now where we're at, and we'll talk about Saturday. I like where we're at currently. Yeah. I wish it had been a little bit longer road to get here.
Yeah, and once again, we'll talk about it when we get to Saturday. I think there's things to come out of the situation we are in.
And I think this is one of those, like, there's plenty of story past the title match, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
But I wish there was a little more story before the title match.
Absolutely. No, for sure. And then, Dylan, I've got to ask you, buddy, have you had the time of your life?
Buddy, let me tell you, Danielson having the Green Day time of your life treatment, especially coming right off of Deadpool Wolverine. If you haven't seen it by this point, spoiler ban's lifted. They had that amazing, like, send off to the, like, Marvel 20th Century, 20th Century Fox, like all these clips in and out to that song. And, look, I'm a kid that grew up on Green Day, so like that song just hits my heartstrings immediately. Yeah. But watching Danielson from like Ring of Honor, Japan, a gap that we don't talk about, and then all of his best moments in AEW, because the guy that won in New Orleans and started the Yes Movement, that's a different guy. That was Daniel Bryan. We don't know who the hell that is.
I don't know where he went. He definitely went to go help the orphans in Washington, right?
He's on a yoga retreat in the mountains because he's a vegan or something. But
with his wife Brie Bella. But Bryan Danielson with Brie Garcia, that's a whole different person.
That's a different dude. But I love that, like, obviously you couldn't use the WWE footage and stuff, so like they were pulling stuff from like him and Colt Cabana on Wrestling Road Diaries, and like early Ring of Honor when he shaved head, American Dragon coming out of Japan trying to prove that he's the best in the world.
Yes.
And look, this man has been responsible for many emotional roller coasters for me. I mean, I was one of those fans that was like tears in my eyes watching him give that, like, I have to retire, I have to walk away, and I was equally shocked when he came back. And if this is it, what a hell of a send-off, but I don't think it's it. I think he's got a few more in him.
And that's that goes into leading in through the whole episode that we're doing, because there's so many predictions we could pull. But to finish Wednesday Night Dynamite out, why are we still cheering?
Folks, look, professional wrestling is a sport built on selling a fight, and I get that. When I was heavy into MMA, I love McGregor because McGregor would say whatever outlandish thing he had to say to piss you off, that you wanted to see him either knock somebody's head off or get his teeth kicked in. And either way, you wanted to see the fight. I get it. But when you're being cheered as a babyface, and you say the words, "I hope your daughter is sitting in the front row so she can watch me cripple you." Guys, look, wrestling is a sport, wrestling is a fight, but you should never walk into a professional wrestling ring thinking, "I want to paralyze someone." That is literally one of the two worst outcomes you can have in a wrestling match. You don't want to kill somebody, you don't want to paralyze somebody. Why in three hells, when he says, "I want to cripple you in front of your child," are some people still cheering? You're starting to see boos come in, and I think you're starting to see crowds be conflicted, but there are still people cheering a man saying, "I want to cripple you in front of your child."
We do have boos. I will say fully, I actually laughed when I heard boos pop through, and then all of a sudden you hear, and we're back to cheers, and we're chanting, and we're doing this, and we're dancing, and okay, cool, great. Y'all almost had him, but then y'all started playing his stupid theme song.
I think I said it last week, and if not, I'm going to say it now. I respect the hell out of Swerve Strickland as a performer, as a talent, as a wrestler. The guy's great. He's got one of my favorite matches from Lucha Underground. Period. Like him and it was Dante Fox and Killshot and the Hells of War match. I think it's one of the best matches in Lucha Underground, top to bottom. It's a great example of ultra violent wrestling being used as this is the final stage that this fight can possibly go to, and they build and build and build to it in that one match. Amazing. But I just don't get the Swerve character, and maybe it's just me. And I don't even think that he's not. I don't think that he's not good. I don't get it. I don't get when you're acting heelish and dickish and you're being totally cheered for being heelish and dickish. MJF is kind of like we all pop for him. We love MJF. And then he says his heel things, he does his evil things, and he gets booed for that. And I think if Swerve was the same way, I wouldn't bat an eye. I'd be like, yeah, great. Like, MJF is one of the most over people in wrestling right now, and he still gets booed out of buildings.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, it's just, I think like we said last week, you could cheer for your guy when he shows up, but if he shows up and acts like an asshole, you've got to take a step back and be like, hey, man, that's not cool.
Hey, we need to chill out here.
Yeah, hey, buddy, don't tell the guy with neck issues I'm going to stomp the back of your neck in front of your child.
Very much so.
So, but they're selling a fight, and I'm going to buy the pay-per-view.
That brings us to Wembley. Yeah, no. That's going to bring us to Wembley. And whatever happens in Wembley, hopefully it stays in Wembley and it doesn't happen 2 weeks after it all out. But we'll see what happens. But now we're going to fast forward. Skip it through Thursday because we didn't watch TNA. We didn't see anything happen on TNA. And then we're going to move to SmackDown. Friday Night SmackDown. I wish I had a whiteboard.
We really do need to make the board.
I'm about to go buy one. I'm about to go buy one and have a big old whiteboard that I can immediately turn to and go, this is my predictions that I made literally last week. If you weren't listening to last week's episode,
date next to it and everything. Like, all right, 2 weeks ago, I said...
Yes. If you weren't listening to last week's episode, I specifically said on Friday Night SmackDown that Roman Reigns is going to come in and beat the tar out of the bloodline until it gets boring. And in full honesty, it got boring last week. So what did Friday Night SmackDown do? They said, I hear you, Alex Braddock, on the Victory Royale Wrestling podcast. We're going to book it. And they brought Jacob Fatu out of injury to beat the tar out of Roman Reigns.
Samoan werewolf.
It was on the board!
The Samoan werewolf, baby.
The Samoan werewolf has now beaten the OTC. And not in a match, but we knew it was coming. We talked about it last week, how it is the climax of this thing is the werewolf versus the OTC. Now, we know how it's going to go, lol, Roman Reigns. But this time...
But this time he's babyface.
Correct.
So
we will see what happens. But
again,
that is the Bloodline feud.
Roman's great. He was, this is not a bash Roman session. A lot of people just like, whoa, he's been winning, so screw him or whatever. Like, no, he's great. Crowd turns on him pretty quickly, but he's great.
Yes. Yes, they do. And we will see how everything comes into full circle. But the topic I want to talk about, and the topic I have not mentioned to Dylan Gilbert because I know how much of a freaking mark he is.
I'm nervous.
Buddy, I'd like to share with you my prediction. We now have a no longer blue, but now red Kevin Owens. And not only do we have a red Kevin Owens, but we have now experienced the pop-up powerbomb for the first time in a very long time. And not only that, but he has also picked up the title and has looked menacingly towards Cody Rhodes. Buddy, mark it down! We will be seeing a heel turn Kevin Owens at Bash in Berlin.
All right. You're gonna make me sound like a hypocrite. I don't care. Heel Kevin Owens is the best Kevin Owens. We talk about I'm a figure collector. I'm a total mark. The section of my desk that goes from here to here is Kevin Owens figures. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I love him. And if I'm at a show and he absolutely mauls Cody, I'm not going to cheer. I'm going to quietly laugh to myself, and I'm going to have a smile on my face because, damn it, that's the best story to tell. But I think heel Kevin Owens is the best Kevin Owens. When he comes unglued on people, when he mauled Sami Zayn in NXT to the point that they're stretchering him out and he drags him off the stretcher and Regal has to come out and try to stop it, you will not get a more pure reaction. Please give me, at the very least, NXT Kevin Owens back. If you want to really make my heart happy in that sinister way, give me Ring of Honor, Descent into Madness Kevin Steen. And again, I will definitely be sitting back the whole time going, what an asshole, but damn it, will you be getting a reaction.
But, and I will say this, and I don't know if I said it on air or off air, but I think I said it last week. I will lose all money that I have ever had if the WWE, now ran by Paul of Triple H Levesque, brings me a Kill Owens kill shirt. Dude,
in a heartbeat.
You can take all my money. I almost lost all my money on the ECW KO shirt, but I did not bite on that t-shirt. I almost did not.
If Triple H wanted to do get a crazy reaction out of honestly probably too small portion of people to do it, but if you want to get the world's biggest pop out of me, have him show up to face Cody, and it's not the song we're used to hearing. It's Unsettling Differences by Blue Smock Nancy, like he used to come out to in ROH, and just sell the oh my God, he's unhinged.
Oh yeah.
Again, if I'm in the building, I'm booing with a smile on my face. You know, when you're at a wrestling show, you're a part of the story being told by your reactions to the story being told. Some people like the bad guys. I get it. But if you're in the theater for Star Wars and Vader destroys a planet, do you laugh back to yourself and go, damn, that's hard? Or do or are you the loser that goes, yeah, screw Alderaan? You can enjoy the heelishness without cheering for a bastard.
Absolutely.
Give me bastard Kevin Owens, and I will quietly sit back and smile, taking in at what a savage he is, because I think that's the best story he tells.
Now, I'll give full credit. I definitely saw that on a Facebook post, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, no, that makes sense. You have this blue-colored Kevin Owens, then all of a sudden he has a color change. That's weird. No, I genuinely hope and pray that we are getting a heel KO. especially to carry on this Cody story because it's not going anywhere right now.
Well, and it's at a point where you have to do something, and he has to have another mountain to climb. And if that mountain to climb is maybe a heel Kevin Owens getting disqualified, and then we have some sort of no DQ match or something at Bad Blood, and Cody ultimately comes out victorious, but they have a war, I think that's a great situation for Cody because you can continue a storyline on. And KO's at a point in his career, as much as it pains me to say it, he can continue to take the losses because his matches still mean something. Because we all know that the man that came into the company, his first night on the main roster, powerbombed John Cena and stomped on the U.S. title is still there. He may have mellowed out because he's got kids and everything, but the prize fighter still lies beneath. And I think if you want to tell a story, that's the story to tell.
It's funny that you say the prize fighter. The tag on the top 10 SmackDown moments was Rhodes, like Cody Rhodes.
Mm-hmm.
Rhodes to the prize fight.
Yep.
So even WWE is teasing it.
Look, I think there's not many characters in the modern era that have been compelling to me like him.
For sure.
And I know that he's had those moments in the sun. Triple H literally handing him the Universal title was awesome for me as a fan. I mean, he's had some of my favorite moments in the last decade. And if he is another step on Cody's ladder and they do it the right way, I think it's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty much all that happened on Friday Night SmackDown. We had a Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton thing with Michin looking to possibly be challenging. I don't know. I don't even want to get into it.
Man,
but
I love
and then we go to
so much, but
Friday night house show Rampage. The only talking moment I want to talk about this is Nick Wayne versus Kip Sabian, which your mom's is hot, Wayne. I said it. Ha!
Nick Wayne's hot ass mom. God. But also, Nick Wayne, dude. Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian. Put those two together. That's money. It's not a matchup I ever thought of, but that is money.
Oh, yeah.
Kip is painfully underrated. I'm happy to see him back in the picture. And I've been enjoying this thing they're doing with Nick's underrated also. But I love this thing that they're doing with Kip Sabian kind of trying to be a thorn in the side for the patriarchy. And I'm kind of hoping we see Superbad back. Maybe Penelope's around. Maybe he brings back some friends. Who knows?
Who knows? Which we'll just go ahead and move into Collision. We'll say at the end of Collision, there was an announcement for All In Wembley that has the patriarchy, Christian Cage, Killswitch, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne versus the Bang Bang Gang, which are the Guns and Juice Robinson, versus the House of Black, Buddy Matthews, Brody King, and Malachi Black.
Yep. Versus
a wild card, I guess is what they're calling it.
Yeah, they're calling it the wild card because I guess they're keeping in line with the stuff they've done with All In, All Out. Like you've got your suits and then you get your wild card. And I don't know if there's going to be a match to determine or if it's going to be something that they keep secretive. But my kind of hope is that it's got something to do with Kip Sabian because I think patriarchy has at this point pissed off so many people. To enter into a ladder match, it's a 4-way ladder match for the trios title. So we're looking at 12 people.
Yeah.
12 people in a ladder match. You're talking about pure chaos. And I think Superbad, maybe he brings some friends along. Maybe we see a return to form of Butcher and Blade. They're two guys I think are wildly underrated.
Yeah.
And I think have a shitload to offer.
And not only underrated, but now have a platform to work on. I
Yes.
think that was the hardest thing for them is that you saw a lot of Butcher and Blade working on Dark and Elevation.
Yes.
But now they have a platform to work. They have a platform to show off who they are. And if that's on Collision, awesome.
Yeah,
But
I'd love to see it.
major hitter for Saturday Night Collision. We talked about it on Dynamite. We had FTR via the Acclaimed. Buddy, time limit draw. How
I love
often
it.
do you see those?
I think some people argue that we see them too much in AEW, and I'm like, every time it happens, it still hits you.
Yeah.
Like it's still like, oh my god, they hit time limit. And I think it's a perfect way of keeping both these teams looking strong against each other.
The 2 points that I have for time limit draws is the reason why you think you're doing it too much is the haters that watch the other product and realize that they don't do it at all.
Right.
Secondly, it shows the amount of talent and fight that the people in the ring have. If a MMA fight goes to a time limit draw and is based off decision, you applaud both of those guys because they put on a fight for however many rounds / minutes they were in the ring for.
15 to 25 if you're going UFC rules.
Right.
And so I mean, why wouldn't you applaud a 30-minute time limit draw? Because these guys went through absolute hell for that 30 minutes and could not determine a winner.
Which we will talk about a 30-minute match here in just a second. But FTR Acclaimed ends in a time limit draw. We talked about how talented Acclaimed is. We talked about how talented FTR is. FTR still some of the top tag teams in the world.
You could argue that they're the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could definitely argue that they're the best, and I wouldn't disagree.
I wouldn't. And then you could go and make an argument that the Bucks are the best, and I wouldn't disagree. And then you could turn around and make an argument that somebody in WWE has the best tag team. But DIY, I wouldn't argue with that. Nowadays, with the booking, questionable. But throwing back on the indies, top best tag team of all time.
I think that's kind of the beauty of wrestling, man. Like you can have that debate, and it's almost like debating superheroes fighting.
It is, and the answer is always different every time you have the debate. But FTR via Acclaimed ends in time limit draw, and then without getting on a microphone to tell the people in the ring, without getting on a microphone to tell the people in the arena, Tony Schiavone just starts yelling on commentary.
I love it. It made me laugh so hard. Whereas like these guys are fighting and he's yelling into his commentary microphone like he's trying to get them to stop, but doesn't grab a live mic to say like Tony Khan's made official. Both teams get to go to Wembley. Both teams get to go to Wembley. Like he's yelling to try to get he's yelling like he's trying to defuse the situation, but the arena doesn't hear him and the guys in the ring don't hear him. No. So he's just yelling at a wall.
So there is still chaos going on. And it's all because Tony Schiavone decided to not grab a microphone. But it is what it is.
Because he has done that before where he gets the thing on, he's like, oh, hold on a second. You hear the rustling of his headset coming off, and he grabs a live mic and goes, guys, Tony Khan has just said word from the back. This match has been made official. Like, he's done it before. Why wouldn't he do it this time? I don't know. But the social media clip made me laugh. It's just
absolutely.
Both teams go to Wembley. Both teams go to Wembley.
And then just hard cut. So let's talk that real fast. Wembley Stadium, they're really trying to one up their last year's show for sure.
Oh, 100%.
They when we talk about banger matches that we have, that whether it's rich in storytelling or it's rich in talent, we have the 4-way trios ladder match. We have now a 3-way tag team match for the tag titles via Young Bucks, FTR, and Acclaimed. We have Mariah May versus Toni Storm. We have Brian Danielson via Swerve Strickland, Kill Shot. And so MJF versus Will Ospreay. My list goes on. Mercedes Moné versus Britt Baker. The list goes on. There's still more matches being made.
Well, we've got that. My brain just shut off, but it's the gauntlet for a title match in the future that Orange Cassidy's kicking off. We've got a potential I mean, MJF just had that match in Rev Pro with Michael Oku, and there's talk that he could possibly be coming to the company. We could have a surprise debut of Michael Oku in that, in that gauntlet match. We could have a surprise debut of Ricochet in this freaking thing.
Not only that, but let's start fantasy booking here. Michael Oku wins this gauntlet in his debut for a future title match, and we know Will Ospreay is taking it in his home country.
So
we could have Michael Oku versus Will Ospreay on national television.
And this is another thing we're looking past. Pac cut a promo on Dynamite. Whoever wins the title in Wembley has got to turn right back around Chicago and face Pac. So whoever comes out of Wembley has got to face Pac.
Nah, it'll be fine.
That's going to be a banger. I
Absolutely.
don't think he's taking the title off either of them, but like Pac is one of those guys kind of like Kevin Owens. He can take the loss because it's still going to mean something. The match is still going to mean something, and it's still going to be awesome.
Absolutely.
So I mean, but I also, one of the things I read online, so I'm not even going to take credit for this being my thought, but like one of the things I saw as a potential wild card team is, MVP and Bobby Lashley are no longer with WWE. What if we see some iteration of the Hurt Business pop up? I mean, there's so many possibilities coming into this show, man. Like, they're really trying to give this like their WrestleMania feel.
Absolutely. Which I guess is a good thing.
I mean, the storytelling in AEW has gotten so good in these last few months. I think it takes a big show to win over some of these some of the casual fans that like, well, I'll go watch it at a friend's house that's an AEW guy and then get hooked, or somebody that's like, look, I've been kind of in and out, but like I'll pay attention to the big shows. Same thing with Mania, man. Like I know so many people that were like kind of half in, half out of wrestling that came back and paid attention to when The Rock showed up and had that match at Mania. I think this is one of those things. They've done such a good job of building these storylines to this point. And I think that's why like my frustration with Acclaimed and FTR being so quick, like the stuff with the patriarchy, we've been building on with with them feuding with House of Black and Bullet Club Gold. We're going back 6 months. We're going back a year. A lot of these have some form of roots that are 6 months plus. And I think like Acclaimed FTR has roots, but we're really, really pushing it now.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But I still think that could, half these matches that we're talking about could be match of the night.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see. I mean, it's gonna be a big night.
Oh,
for
man.
sure.
I'm so ready.
I'll go ahead and preface before we get into the rest of what we want to talk about on this episode. For All In Wembley, things might be a little weird next weekend. Whether we haven't quite decided whether or not we are going to be doing a full week recap. If we're doing a half week recap, I will personally be out of town and away from a recording device, so recording might get a little funky. But what we do know is that All In Wembley will be recapped. Whether that is a post on Monday or that is a post on Tuesday, we will be recapping All In Wembley. Now, my hope is that it can be a post on Monday, and we record, my God, we might be gone. We might not be able to push the record button, but we're going to record anyway.
I'm just saying, what better way to recap a show in Wembley than after you've been absolute lads and been crushing pints all day?
Because here at Victory Roll, we play really messed up drinking games. And not because we're alcoholics, but because indie wrestling has too many cutters.
It does.
And
so if you want to play along with us, the Wembley drinking game, if there is a cutter, you take a sip of whatever your beverage of choice is. There's other rules, and I think we could those kind of go on a show by show basis. Like I've seen some that if like a big return happens, you finish your drink. If a shock title change happens, you finish your drink. We a lot of times that will decide those literally in the moment. But the one constant is if there's a cutter, there's a sip.
We used to have where if there was a super kick, you drink, and then we started watching the Young Bucks and the Usos on a regular, and we had to stop doing that.
Yeah, that's how you die of alcohol poisoning.
That is how you die. And luckily for me, I don't have work the next morning, but you do. So
I work.
We shall see. But we did want to preface. We did want to preface.
Yes.
There will be a video on Monday. Whether that is a midweek review, we may just look at Monday Night Raw and Dynamite because that's all we talk about anyway. And that'll be the recap on Monday. And then Tuesday we will be posting All in Wembley. Or it may just be screw it and throw up a post on Monday morning of us recording after All in Wembley of just us recapping Wembley. But I will go ahead and preface as well before we get into the next segment. We will be posting a watch-along on the next Thursday. So not this upcoming Thursday, but the Thursday after. So we will have All in Wembley this upcoming weekend. We will have our recap dropping on Monday or Tuesday. And then on that Thursday, we will have a watch-along where we have Dale Springs back for his retirement match, which personally is a huge match for me, and I loved watching it alongside him. Because that match meant the world for me. Still does. Still one of my top matches of all time. But we will be doing a watch along with that.
I totally agree, man. That was a special night, and to resurrect Dale Springs from the dead to talk about that match was truly special. And I can't wait for you guys to watch it.
To bring him back from the Bushwood Country Club to help the orphans.
The orphans.
But no, for sure. But Dylan, let's talk about it. You stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning and you missed it anyway. Let's talk about the New Japan Pro World Pro Wrestling G1 Climax 2024 34. Dude.
So I came home from an outing somewhere in the 1 a.m. ballpark, and I was just like, I didn't know exactly what time the finals were happening. I knew that they were happening. And when I pull up the New Japan app and the show says live right now, I was like, well, look, I'm just going to try to stay up. And there's a lot of, like, you know, it's a G1 final. There's a lot of, like, we're just taking guys who have kind of built some stories through this. We're throwing them in some tag matches and some 6-mans and 10-mans, whatever. It's a lot of really fun wrestling, but somewhere around, like, a match or two left before the main, my consciousness left me. I fell asleep on the couch. And I wake up to, like, confetti falling and stuff, and then the G1 logo flashing. And then I fell back asleep, woke up, and, like, the stream was over. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, if I stayed up so I didn't miss Zack Sabre Jr. winning, and I still miss Zack Sabre Jr. winning, I'm going to be a little heartbroken. And then before recording, we watched the match, and I kind of knew. Like I tried to avoid social media somewhat today, but like I kind of knew.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I've saved my one per episode for this, but Zack fucking Sabre Jr., dude. We watched the A block finals, B block finals, and then the G1 final. And when I say that Zack Sabre Jr. is on another level, he is truly looking at wrestling, like I think commentary said, he's looking at professional wrestling like jazz music. He's playing this game in such a way that, like, a move could go wrong and he can find a way to make that a submission hold that looks devastating.
The commentary line that we all laughed at was he is not reading from a book hymnal. He is writing it a chord by chord as he goes.
He's coming up with the lyrics on the spot.
Yes, it was nuts, dude. But I will go ahead and give you some analytics because I am the analytic commentator of the night. In Block A, we had Zack Sabre Jr. with 14 points, which means he was 7-2. We had Shingo Takagi with 10 points, which I believe that makes him 5-4, and Great-O-Khan, which we did not expect to be taking in anywhere close to semifinals or finals, coming in with 10 points as well. So the matches with that went Great-O-Khan Takagi. Winner of that was Takagi. That went on to face ZSJ. Winner of that was going to the finals. In the B block, we had David Finlay with 12 points, which means he went 6-3. Takeshita with 10 points, which means he went 5-4. And Yota Tsuji also had 10 points, which means he went 5-4. Very close tournament all around. If I remember correctly, they strictly based things off of who beat who.
So yeah, the tiebreakers came into effect, and you watched a lot of guys who I thought had a real shot being eliminated because of tiebreakers.
Yeah.
And so literally, like, if you lost to a guy and then he beat somebody that beat you, you had the same amount of points. Like, there was a couple guys that were eliminated with 10 points.
There were quite a few. I will say A block and B block both.
Guys that were completely eliminated from contention with the same points as the guys that went to the the quarters and everything, because they lost the wrong match at the wrong time, which I love so much about the G1.
G1 will pull that curveball where
it is pure sport.
You look at Great-O-Khan, who just came out of nowhere and got 10 points, but he beat the right guys, and that's all that matters.
Great-O-Khan made a quarterfinal, and Jeff Cobb got eliminated on tiebreakers. The G1 is pure chaos, and I freaking love it. We've talked about watching these matches. They're not just like telling you on commentary like the story being told. They're telling you analytics. They're talking about, like, Zack Sabre Jr. is actually not favored in matches that go beyond 20 minutes. Like, most of his wins are coming before the 20-minute mark. So as this match starts going long, you kind of start feeling like, oh no, he might not take this, or like,
especially if he keeps selling how gassed he is.
Right.
Which we can talk about the final here in a second. But to finish the B block recap, we had Takeshita Tsuji. Tsuji winning that one. Tsuji Finlay for the semifinals. Tsuji winning that one. So we had Zack Sabre Jr. versus Yota Tsuji. And my oh my, what a final. Just nuts. Just absolutely nuts.
31 minutes and 40 seconds is, I believe, what the time that they said it on commentary.
And the fact that, like you said, they mentioned that Sabre is not favored in matches that go over 20 minutes because welcome to fighting spirit in Japan.
Zack Sabre Jr. fights in such a way, too. I think we were talking about it as we were watching it. He's so quick, but he also can stop a match on a dime. Like, he can go from 15 holds traded, strikes, he's bouncing off, and then all of a sudden he just snaps in a submission hold and locks it down.
And you're sitting there
stops.
for 2-3 minutes.
And so that's first gear to sixth gear to first gear to sixth gear, like, that's got to be hell on the body.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, like, when they say he's most of his wins come inside of 20 minutes, and most of his losses have come when matches go over 20. They're building that anticipation. Like, they're making, as much as we love the storytelling, they are really emphasizing the sport of professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
And it feels so, like, it's real, but it feels more real,
Oh, no, very much so. And I mean, so for me, I know if you have a takeaway from this, and it's our takeaway, go back and watch specifically the Zack Sabre Jr. semifinal and final.
Yes.
Because it takes the whole big... Sorry, I'm writing down story reels, and I'm getting distracted. Hey, if you don't know, we started doing little short reels that for our podcast. So check them out, like them, do all the stuffs, and that's fine. Anyway, go back and watch the semifinals and the finals for Zack Sabre Jr. because the dude knows joint manipulation in such a way that makes you feel like he is literally a boa constrictor, like just slithering around you to get the perfect mark. But then as soon as he gets that pop, could be 2 minutes into a match. And this is what I loved about Shingo Takagi and Yota Tsuji. Yota Tsuji had that wrist hurt in the first 2 minutes. And Sabre just did his normal, here's on the elbow, jumps on the elbow, now your wrist is screwed. He does it in pretty much every match, but that was the first limb that he targeted, and Yoda took it and ran with it. Same with Shingo. Saber targeted that leg early on in the match, and you get to the point that at the end of the match, you're sitting there going, how is Shingo standing? Because he's hobbling across ropes, and then all of a sudden he explodes and gives one of the most devastating clotheslines we've seen this month, let alone this year, and maybe this decade.
I'll correct you. That level of force, that was a lariat, brother.
Oh, terribly sorry. Dylan, for our fans, what is the difference between a clothesline and a lariat?
And now I forget what podcast I heard this on. I forget what wrestler was taking credit for this line. But it is, if they hit them and they kind of bounce back a little bit, it's a clothesline. And if you hit them and it takes their head off their shoulders, that's a lariat. And Shingo in that moment, like he's hobbling on one leg and still has the explosive force to like turn Saber inside out.
And it was nuts. But
amazing.
We have Zack Sabre Jr. picking up the win. We mentioned it earlier, spoilers. He picks up the win. Now, if we can talk about the finals for a second. I gotta mention it. I gotta get a shirt made eventually. Here at the Victory Road Wrestling Podcast, we believe everyone has a Blue Thunder Bomb. Dylan, what is a Blue Thunder Bomb?
So, the Blue Thunder Bomb, I think popularized by Sami Zayn, at least for our connotations here, is a move that looks beautiful, looks devastating, and it gets the crowd on their feet because you think that it could be the finish of the match, but it never is. Sami Zayn hits that Blue Thunder Bomb, and everybody gets all hyped up, and it's 1-2 kick out, and the whole crowd goes, oh, and it's like, come on, they should call it the 2 Thunder Bomb.
You know this by now.
You should call it the 2 Thunder Bomb, because he hits it, and they're kicking out at 2.
I like that.
Does it stop it from being an awesome move? Not at all. And when Takeshita hits it, it looks even more devastating. And I think if anybody's going to win with the Blue Thunder Bomb, it should be Takeshita, and it should be really like driven home that he won with a signature and not a finisher.
Absolutely.
But
the reason why I mentioned that, because good Lord, out of these 3 matches, the semifinals and the finals, the amount of Falcon arrows from Yota Tsuji and the amount of Zack drivers from Zack Sabre Jr. And every time I remember us sitting here going, oh, are we there? We got it? Nope, man, it's a kick out at 2. Like, everyone has a Blue Thunder Bomb. And if we make the shirt, then we may have to change it to a 2 Thunder Bomb, but you'll get the gist.
It's every time Sabre hit that Zack driver, I'd lean forward, and I think what makes Sabre such a wild card is like because he's such a submission specialist, he won both of his matches by different submissions.
Yes.
So it's not like, oh, he's going to lock in the STF and that's going to be it. He hits a submission hold, and your belief on whether or not that's going to be the finish grows by how many limbs he can find a way to contort backwards. And go watch the finish to the Sabre Sabre versus Tsuji. If you watch nothing else, watch the way that he twists Yota Tsuji's body. Yota Tsuji's a big dude. He should not be that flexible, which makes everything that Sabre's doing to him that much more terrifying. But Sabre makes a point of like his match can end at any point with any move, and it's still never a Zack driver.
It's still never a Zack driver.
Never.
Dear Lord. It's always a victory roll, or it's a no pun intended.
His victory roll into like the bridge onto the head, or yes. It's one of these like 15 random different angle submissions.
That you think he has him in like the Ring of Saturn from Neville's old days, and then all of a sudden his head is between the guy's legs, and you're like, wait, how did he? And then he starts wrenching a figure 4 with his arms, and you're just like, I don't know how he got in this position, but here we are, and Yoda's tapping out. Great, awesome.
Like the nuts. Human body should not move the way Zack Sabre Jr. moves.
Not at all.
And he still can't win with the Zack driver.
And he still can't.
Wrestling is the best, folks.
Wrestling is, in fact, wrestling. Well, Dylan, do you have anything else for us, man?
So I just two kind of quick takeaways from just people that absolutely impressed me in the G1. As we talked about, I think last week, like Yuya Uemura, who ended up with an injury, not being able to finish through. I think had a star-making performance. Shingo Takagi, we already knew was a monster, but if you doubted it, Shingo Takagi is a freaking monster.
Told me.
He had just, I think if I were to just really take the time and make like the list of my top 5 matches from the G1, he's probably in 3 of them. He just unreal. And then Yota Tsuji, man, like in a time where New Japan, I thought was kind of going into this G1 with a like an identity crisis, and they didn't have like they don't have an ace like they've had before, and they're kind of looking for who could be that next guy. I think this was an absolute star-making G1 performance for Yota Tsuji. From a guy that was like he's got the look. Let's see what he can do to like if in the next 5 years he is the top guy in the company on like an Okada like rise, I would not bat an eye. Dude is unreal.
Absolutely.
And
No, for sure.
finally, we pulled the trigger on Zack Sabre Jr., dude. He came
It's
up with
about
so
time.
many guys that are still. I mean, he came up with Finn Balor. He came up with Will Ospreay. He came up. I mean, so many guys that are at that top level right now. And I've been saying for the longest time, why not ZSJ? And I think we're about to see it.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of ZSJ, before we dismiss, little bit of breaking tradition.
Yes.
So, for those that don't know, the winner of the G1, typically, for the past 34 years, well, no, that's not the case because Wrestle Kingdom's only been around for 14 or 15. Typically, the past couple of G1s that we've had, the winner of the G1 goes on to challenge whoever is the IWGP Heavyweight Champion in the Tokyo Dome at Wrestle Kingdom on January 4th, sometimes January 4th and 5th, depending on the day. But this year, Zack Sabre said, no. On my list of things, the main event at the Tokyo Dome is on that list. But I'm walking in as IWGP champion. Breaking tradition, Zack Sabre Jr. challenges for King of Pro Wrestling, which, unfortunately to my fantasy booking league, is 2 days after Wrestle Dream in Washington.
Oh man.
Dude. Fantasy booking and AEW heavyweight title versus IWGP Danielson versus Sabre match would have been at the top of my bucket list, and I would have flown to Washington to go see it. But no, we have ZSJ breaking tradition, challenging at King of Pro Wrestling. Whoever is champion still, if I had to make bets, it'll be Naito.
Yeah,
We have a month.
I
A
think
month and a half
Naito
until then.
Naito holds the belt until then, and I think there's no better way to pass the torch in the current New Japan landscape, obviously. Like, there's some guys from the past that would have been a huge passing of the torch, but I think for what they have currently, for who is still there, if he pins Naito for that championship, I think that is saying a lot about their faith in him. And right behind King of Pro Wrestling, they've got the Royal Crown. And ZSJ has already vowed to win that title at King of Pro Wrestling and return back to the UK, to the scene where he came up, where he made himself the man that he is today, holding that IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And I would love to see
to
it.
have his first defense in the UK, which will mean the world. But Dylan, that is the week in review. It's been a crazy week.
Isn't
But that has been the
wrestling
week.
awesome?
It's crazy, man. Storytelling at its finest, and they don't call me the storyteller for a reason. Yeah, man, it's just been massive. It's been a massive week, just for theories and wrestling. And I know we have highs and lows in wrestling, but when it comes to storytelling, you need the roller coaster to keep you interested. And I think, honestly, like SmackDown picking up with KO teasing anything to the G1 with Zack Sabre Jr. pushing on New Japan into this next era, all the way to AEW Dynamite where we have Swerve. But that's...
Again, Swerve is great. I just wish the reaction was different.
I have much respect for Swerve because I know how much talent it takes to do what he does.
He's incredible.
But doesn't
when
mean I
he's
won't
being
give
an
him shit.
asshole, boo him. It's fine.
Yes. But we live in a wild world for wrestling, for sure. And this is not counting NXT or TNA like we talked about previously. We didn't watch that. This is not counting indies. This is not counting Pro Wrestling 225 in the Louisiana scene.
We didn't even talk about the chaos. Like AAA had like 6 title changes.
Right.
There's
in
so
one
much
night,
going on at wrestling, like in wrestling right now.
And if you claim that there's only one product, I will not call you unintelligent. I will not call you a buffoon. I will not call you an idiot. You've definitely made the list, but I will not call you a stupid idiot. What I will say is you need to broaden your horizons. Because if you don't appreciate a single story inside of one company, there are plenty more companies. There are local companies around you. Go find them. Go enjoy wrestling and go support what we do. And when I mean we, I mean anything from me who steps in the ring, to Dylan who works a camera, to the people on commentary, to referees, to the owners of the companies themselves. We work our butts off to show off what we are good at. So please, show us some love. Show us some support.
And we've never been in a better time to be a fan of professional wrestling.
For sure.
You can watch indies from across the country. If this is the time to show support. This is the time to broaden your horizons. Be a good fan.
Absolutely. Dylan, my friend, where can they find you?
You can find me. I'm Dylan Gilbert on social media. 1/2/1/3 of Action Figure Weekly. And other than that, man, you can find me pretty much anywhere there's good beer and good wrestling.
Amen to that. Social medias for me are Alex Braddock or at the Alex Braddock, whichever you can find, whichever you can look into. The Victory Roll Wrestling Podcast, once again, we say we don't pay for advertising. So what I would suggest that you do, hit the subscribe button, maybe hit the bell button. I'll be cringy for a little bit. But also don't forget to share. For us, we are just two really good friends, if not best friends. We haven't quite decided, that have loved doing this in person anyway. We get together for every pay-per-view, for every wrestling show that is massive and big. We get together, we sit down, and we talk wrestling. We just decided to say, screw it, let's record ourselves and do it. So we are not looking for any monetary gain out of this, but it doesn't mean that we don't want people to hear what we've got to say. So share it if you love it. I can do English well, and it's especially when I do sympathy things that I learn to suck at speaking.
Alex Braddock versus the English language coming soon.
I've always said my first language is redneck, buddy. I say it best. But anyway, I end the podcast the same way I started. Whether it is a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, or a good night, whatever time of day you have been watching, thank you for doing so. And this has been the Victory Roll Wrestling Podcast.